I'm so excited that you've taken time out to tune in to the Ella Johnson Show. I hope that you enjoy the broadcast. I hope you'll laugh. I hope you'll cry. But I hope that you'll be moved by what you hear. Well, my guests are very special to me, and so are you. So I want you to sit back, enjoy the show. What you can become depends on what you can overcome. Yes, I'm so excited about my children's book that's coming out, and I'm looking for some mahogany kids. I'll tell you about that later. It's time for the Ella Johnson Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. Listen, it's Thursday night, and I am excited because it's Thursday. It's almost the weekend, and I'm here with you guys, and I'm here with James. Well, listen, I want to welcome all of you who have taken time out of your busy day to join me here on the Ella Johnson Show. If you're watching from YouTube, I need you to do me a favor. Just subscribe to the channel. I mean, you're already there. Do that so that you won't miss any of the shows. Now, if you're watching from Facebook, you already know what to do. Just hit the share button so that everyone will be able to see the broadcast. I want to thank all of you again for tuning in. I want to thank all of you who are signing the petition, those of you that are sharing it, that you're sending it to your friends in Messenger and emails. I really, really, really do appreciate that. And on behalf of my team, I want to thank you personally. Now, again, tonight, we're going to talk about the broadcast. We're going to talk about the petition, because the reason the petition is so important, guys, is because I want you to think about something. Johnny D was sent to death row. Okay, I want you guys to think about this. We're going to uncover a lot of stuff tonight, myself and James, about this story and things that we've learned, and what really went down, and why this petition is so important. But I want you to think about something else. Bertha Morrison, who's Ronda's mother, she also is looking for the killer. She wants some answers as well. I don't know if you know it, but if you're Monroeville and you get the Monroe Journal, you know that she was recently in the paper for that same reason. She still wants answers. She's still wanting to know who killed her daughter, and she should know. And the reason the petition is so important to me is because, think about it, Johnny D, yes, he was exonerated. Yes, he got out. Yeah, he had some kind of out-of-court settlement with the state. But the fact still remains that there are people who may still think he did it. Even though he was exonerated, even though he was released, even though we saw the 60 Minutes interview, there are people who still think. So I personally believe that the only way to completely exonerate him is if we find the killer and bring them to justice. I really think that, with all of your help and all the stuff that people have already told me, I feel confident. I really feel confident. But I want you guys to meet my guest. James Frye is with me today. Welcome, James. Now, you're special because you get to tell everybody who you are. And I want you to just have fun. It's Thursday night. You're with me. I got you. Right. And I just found out that you're actually some kin to my brother. So we're family. Yeah. So tell everybody who you are, James.
Well, I'm nobody in particular. I'm a Monroeville native. Right now, I reside in Decatur, Georgia. I'm here, hopefully starting my graphic design business in a couple of months. But outside of that, I'm just a regular person.
Just a regular person. Well, you know what? I think that's you're important. You know how I met James, guys. I have to tell you this. I saw a comment that he made in the Monroe County Black History group, and I thought, wow, he has a great opinion about the To Kill a Mockingbird. And we talked, and he agreed to come on to the broadcast. So I'm really excited that you want to share your views with us tonight, James. And welcome to the Ella Johnson Show.
I'm glad you invited me.
Well, I'm glad you're here because we're
Yeah.
gonna talk. Listen, we're gonna keep it real tonight. We're gonna talk about stuff because listen, when you guys hear about all the stuff that we learned about Tom Tate, Sheriff Tom Tate, and how he and the investigators, which were Benson and Eichner, how they coerced with the witnesses to get them to lie so that they can convict Johnny D. It just something has to set in your spirit that just doesn't feel good knowing that. I mean, right, James? It's like
I agree.
I think there comes a time when you should let things go, but not this time. And I think that the community as a whole, not just African Americans, but Caucasian families want this as well. So, what better way the time is always right to do what's right? That's the title of the show tonight. And I think this is the time, and this is what's right. So, welcome again and again to the Ella Johnson. Listen, I want you guys to know, the picture that comes up that's sitting there with the Johnny D and that artwork. Well, I want to give a shout out to Jonathan Martin from Monroeville who drew that photo. I mean, that picture, that painting. He's so talented. And for this, he's allowing us the permission. He's allowing us to use that photo. So I want to give him a shout out because I believe in, represent, right? Take our people from our hometown and put their stuff on blast. I really believe in that. So let me ask you, James, have you been following the George Floyd
I've
trial?
been I've been following it. Not in the way I want to, but I have been following it.
So what do you
Um,
think about it?
the perfect thing that I saw today was actually on TikTok. This guy said it's crazy that it's been going on, I think, 4 weeks. We've been trying to convict a murderer, but we saw it on TV. We saw it all on camera. So they say, why is it taking 4 weeks for us to convict somebody who, there's no doubt, and shouldn't be any doubt in anybody's mind that this guy is guilty of murder. Yet, we have all of these people that are trying to champion Chauvin. We have his defense attorneys that are pretty much pulling anything they can out of their hat to try to convince this jury, hey, it wasn't Chauvin putting his knee in his neck for 9 minutes. It was actually these drugs that he was taking, and it's the fact that he
Yes.
was this, and the fact that he
Yeah.
had these illnesses.
What strikes me, it's not odd, it's incredulous to be honest with you. But
Mhm.
it they're putting George Floyd on trial.
Yeah,
He's dead. We saw how he died. And you hear more. I know it's a strategy. What they're trying to do is take as much attention away from Chauvin as possible. So my strategy would be if I were an attorney, let's keep showing that video. Let's keep showing that video. As many chances as we get to show that video because the proof is in the pudding. We
right,
saw what happened.
right.
Now, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to be found guilty?
Being realistic, this is America. When's the last time that a white man has been convicted for murdering a black man? Never.
I can Google it.
Yeah. Do I think that this may be different? It's possible. It's definitely possible. This is different from every other case that I can think of outside of what was his name? The guy in New York that was strangled to death. I forgot his name. That's sad. But outside of him, there's been no recordings. There haven't been a whole bunch of bystanders and closed circuit cameras that can show us a couple of different angles from this situation. So it's a possibility. I think it's a higher possibility than before that he'll be convicted, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to happen until I see it happen.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I had a bad feeling too that he's probably not going to be convicted because what the prosecution has to prove is that Chauvin caused his death.
Right.
And that's why, they're obviously bringing in the drugs because they're trying to say that's what did it. Now, someone says Eric Gardner.
Eric Gardner, that's his name.
Yeah, Eric Gardner. Thank you, May. Thank you so much. But yeah, what do you think is going to happen if he's not found guilty? Do you think people are going to let it take this news
Oh no.
easily, or
No.
do you think it's going to be some problems?
Baltimore is going to be set back on fire.
You think so?
Yes. Yes. Because
Do you think it should? Do you think it should be?
It depends. It depends on it depends on the day for me. The reason why I say that is because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, it needs to happen. Reason being, I think humanity, as much as we want the peaceful approach, we want to sit
Right.
down and kumbaya and hold hands and talk it out. It never happens. The only time people react is when there is force. The only time people react is when somebody gets hurt, unfortunately. But that's why I say, on the other hand, I don't think it should, because it's not gonna solve anything.
No, it's not.
Start to loot and set buildings on fire again and go out in the streets and go crazy. It's just gonna once again paint the scenario that black people are all of these negative things that they say we are.
Even though they're the ones that started it.
Even though they're the ones that started, yes.
Right.
Even though they cause more fires than we ever have, even though they start more wars than we ever have, it's still going to come back on us.
And I don't understand how it is that America doesn't remember what it's done. It's like from the forefathers, you guys didn't have black people in mind. And we were enslaved at the time the Declaration of Independence was written. And now you want to act like we're all created equal. No, we were not part of that scenario when you created that. That's why we have Juneteenth. But I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But this is a topic that I've had with a lot of my friends about Chauvin. So we're all just kind of waiting and seeing, what's going to happen. But it also makes me think about Johnny D, James, because, okay, this was in 1986 with Johnny D. We're in 2021. So that's how many years?
I'm not the best at math. Like 86.
It's definitely been over.
It's over 20 years.
30. It's been over 30. It's over 30 years because.
Oh, 30. Well, yeah, because I'm 30.
No, it's over 30
this happened
years.
before I was born. Yeah.
So the thing is that you would think things would have improved. Everybody tells us vote. Everybody tells us let the law take control. And that just doesn't seem to work for us. So then there comes a point in time, James, where we have to do something different. Do you think, or should we just keep riding it out like this? Or do we eventually have to say, look, something's got to give? Something's got to give. I agree.
Well, for one thing, the whole notion that they have forgotten isn't true. People pretend that they don't know things all the time. I've had experiences in my own particular life where things have happened, and then it's, you can come back a day later and it's like, you remember when you did, or when you said, or the way you acted? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
White America definitely knows exactly what they've been doing, but they don't feel like they owe us anything. Right. That's the reason why they don't remember. That's the reason why they don't think that anything that's going, all the things that are going on are going bad or aren't bad. And that's the reason why they defend people like Chauvin, because they don't feel like they owe us anything. And they're going to continue to do that, because we have to remember, if it wasn't for rich businessmen in the North saying that slaves were not a credible source of income for them, we would probably still be slaves, because that's an argument that people have all the time about, the Civil War. Well, and for us, he just needed to, he wanted to see us free. No, it was the Emancipation Proclamation was a business move.
Agree.
It was a business move, and it was a business move by, just like the same thing that we're seeing now with the businessmen in Washington trying to have all these things passed to help them. This tax cut that Trump put in place to give them more, so there is
I agree
no,
with you.
yeah,
I'm
there's no
glad you
reason
said
for
that because I don't think a lot of people realize that, James, that the Emancipation Proclamation, slow your roll, because that was something that he did that they definitely benefited from it. And that's the only reason that move was made. We just got some benefit out of it as well. But a lot of people were freeing themselves way before that happened
right.
anyway. Um, but let's talk about Johnny D because
Right, and
you know
that's another reason why they put in the 13th Amendment, because oh well, we can't have slaves. We got to come up with another way to get these Negroes back under control. Let's go ahead and put this 13th Amendment in place, and then let's just make everything that we can possibly make a crime. Let's make it a crime so that we can put them right back out there in the fields. So they definitely know what's going on.
I mean, you're from a younger generation. That's why I wanted you on the show because I like to get perspectives from everybody that's in this because we're all free
Mhm.
thinkers and I think we should be forward in the way we look at things. And I wanted to bring you on so that I can get your perspective. And it sounds like we're kind of on the same page as far as how we see things. Now, let's talk about Johnny D.
All
I know
right.
you told me you've done some research on this.
Yeah.
We started the petition. And I thank you. Thank you so much for signing the petition and being a part of this. Because I think this is a movement that we need to bring to the forefront. Because I believe that as African Americans from the South, we have a totally different story than African Americans anywhere else in the world.
Agreed.
And because this is where the civil rights movement, this is where all of it began.
Right.
And we appreciate Dr. King and all of the civil rights activists and all of what they contributed, because had they not done that, we would still be drinking from colored only water fountains, and so we
Right.
appreciate that. But have we made a lot of progress? Medium? Or where do you think our progress is? Does it seem like we're going backwards, James?
I wouldn't say we're going backwards. I wouldn't say we're going backwards, but I think we've been moving at a really snail pace. We haven't been moving as fast as we need to.
Yeah.
Well, President of the United States was a black. While he was being president, black men were still getting shot down, imprisoned falsely, and murdered. In their jail cells. So I don't think I would say we've been progressing in certain aspects. I think that's the best way to describe it. We got black billionaires, we got black inventors, we got black politicians, but ultimately black people are still viewed the same way they were viewed 150 years ago.
Let's
You
talk
know,
about 1986 because Johnny D in the South, just like us, I don't know when you left Monroeville, but in 86, I was still there. I was probably like 16, 15,
I wouldn't
16
be
years
born
old
for
at that.
another 4 years.
Oh, okay. So you weren't even born yet. Okay. So here's the thing. In that time, it was just not proper for blacks and whites to mingle in relationships, apparently. I didn't really know this until I'm researching
Mhm.
now. But apparently it was just not looked upon, it was frowned upon for that to happen. Johnny D was in a relationship with a Caucasian woman who just so happened to be married. Okay. And he was known, and there's rumor, it's alleged, I don't know if they ever proved it, but that he was a drug dealer. He was one of the best, he was the biggest, and all this kind of stuff. And none of that is relevant because he didn't get arrested for any of those things. Now, technically, he didn't get arrested for being with the white woman, but we know in the South, that's kind of what happened. So, we're going to cover a lot of stuff tonight, but I want to start out by asking you, why do you think this petition is necessary? And should we go for this, in a sense of reopening this investigation to find out who actually did it?
Um, I think it depends on how much traction it gets. It's always the court of public opinion before anything. A lot of the people that even went on trial for, so I would say that first. I think it depends on how many people feel that it's necessary to clear his name first and foremost. The second thing, um, I don't know if they're ever going to be able to find out. who did it, unless this person on their deathbed decides to admit to what they did, and if they do it, then I don't. It's a lot of factors. Like I said,
Right.
you have to have enough people that are interested in it. You've got to have a judicial system that has decides that they want to reopen the case and do more research, get the FBI or whoever involved, necessary to do the proper work to find out who it is. Uh, is it necessary? I would say yeah and no. The only reason, rest in peace to Johnny D. I'm glad that he got off. He did get a little bit of compensation, just a little bit, compared to compensation that a lot of other people get. But I guess it just really depends on how many feelings we want to get hurt in the long run. Because of course, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that were already upset that he got off. And then the fact that, if we do find somebody else and that person is tried or whatever and gets convicted, it just really depends.
Right. Well, I mean, here's my thing. In some circles, there are people that still think Johnny D did it. We know he didn't do it. The evidence was never there in the first place.
Right.
And I think that we have to set a precedence. And sometimes, even if you come up short, at least you have to set a precedence with people that we will fight. Because Johnny D came up short when he tried to, because I was looking today over where he tried to sue them. Of course, equal justice was representing him, but they tried to sue for, I think, 7.2 million or something like that. And he came up short, but at least he stood his ground. He didn't just sit there and take it, because at the end of the day, James, this system killed Johnny D.
Agreed.
The stress, the embarrassment, taking him away from his family, it stripped him.
Right.
And someone has to pay for that. So I don't make any apologies for the petition at all. So let's talk a little bit. November 1st, 1986. I already know you weren't around, but you have done some research about this, and you know that what happened is on that day, Ronda Morrison was killed. She was shot 3 times. Okay. And she died. She was 18 years old, white, from a prominent white family. And Monroeville was split immediately between black and white. I think that was the thing that really ripped Monroeville apart. And I really don't think I mean, people will say that it's come back together, but I don't think it's all there. And I can tell that from a lot of comments I see. So, and when I go home, I see it. So he was thrown in jail. He was thrown on death row immediately. Okay. There was now Tom Tate and all these guys made no sense. They're trying to say that they did that though, James, because they were doing it for his protection, because people wanted to kill him.
Sure.
We know that's a lie. That's not how it's done.
Right.
And it shouldn't have been done that way. But nonetheless, they did. They put him in there. He sat there some months before he actually had a trial, 15 months before he actually went to trial. Now, basically, they took it out of Monroe County and had it somewhere where the percentage of blacks went from like 40% to like 11. Okay. And so you think he's going to get a fair trial? There's no way he's going to get a fair trial.
Of course not.
His jury was predominantly white. So he was done for from jump. You agree?
Agreed.
Yeah. But see, this is what hurts me, is because we're still seeing this. And I don't got, for the record, I'm just going to be honest with you. I am angered when I see my people mistreated. And I'm even more angry when I see that we don't do anything about it. And then I get even angrier when you have people who try to do something about it and they don't get the support from everybody else, because we still haven't figured that part out. But if you watched the broadcast last night, James, you realize that, because Dr. Stallworth brought out that, Dr. King didn't even have the support of all the black people. I mean, Mobile, right down the street from Monroeville, he wanted to come there and fight their civil rights battles, and they turned him away. The black pastors did. Now, let's talk about that real quick. How do you feel when you hear that black people don't support something that helps black people?
That I have not. I have tried to figure that out for the longest. I really don't know. It is. I think that is probably the number two biggest question that I've always had that I have yet to come to a conclusion on. Uh, I think it's a whole. I think it's a lot of factors in why we don't get support, but a lot of it I think is fear. I think a lot of it is fear because I can just go back, you know, for the lesson of being black is me. You cannot go looking a certain way. There are certain ways that you cannot act, certain things that you does, and so I think a lot of it comes from the fact that speak out, or if we support, or if we do this, there's a fear of whatever is jealousy. It just depends on whatever the situation, whatever it is. Like right now, a lot of people probably. Well, I'm gonna be real with you. I think the reason why a lot of black folks don't support the whole thing behind Johnny D is simply for the fact that he supposedly went with white women. Now, a lot of people will probably disagree with me on that, but you find that a lot of the times, black is black, white is white. There's no mixing of the two. The reason why he was in the situation that he was in, because he was messing with them white women, and that's something that I heard myself. Growing up, like I said, I heard about Johnny D growing up. I've heard of plenty of people talk about Johnny D, and that's one of the biggest things that I always heard. But you shouldn't have been messing with the white women. Yeah, I guess some people can say that, but at the same time, you can't say that somebody deserved to lose their entire life because they decided to mess with somebody of a different race. I think that's absurd. But
That is
it
absolutely
happens.
absurd. Now,
People feel that way.
here's the deal too. Johnny D in Pete Early's book. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to read Pete Early, but he wrote the two books out there about Johnny D.
Mhm.
Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, and then Circumstantial Evidence by Pete Early. Pete Early is going to be on the broadcast next week. We're interviewing him on this broadcast. And in the book, he described a lot of that relationship. And in the book, it talked about how, in his book, it talks about how he actually met her. Um, she actually came to his house once,
Mhm.
this Caucasian woman looking for drugs. And it talks about how she loved him. You could clearly see that she was completely attracted to him. She loved him. She was, based on the book, and it also shows where he was trying to break it off from her. Now, you
Mhm.
don't hear that part of it. Everybody talks about he was with the white woman. Well, let's just keep it real. He realized, okay, this is not good. I don't want to hurt my wife. I'm married. I have a family. I can't do this. And the reason he even was attracted to other women and was clubbing, in the book, it talks about how he was just he wanted to live that party life. And his
Mhm.
wife was more wanting to stay home. And that's what put him out there. Now, how many men don't go down that road?
Yeah.
So this is the part I don't like. I don't like people throwing stones because none of you got caught is what happened. So I just wanted to clarify that because yes, he was in a relationship with her. That shouldn't. I personally believe that why we don't get a lot of support from African Americans. I think you and I agree that the number one reason is fear. I think that's number one. The second reason I think is because of comfort. They're comfortable and they don't want to mess with that. Because if I have a position and I'm able to pay my bills, I just bought this house, I'm living good, I'm not letting anything disrupt that. Not even if I got to fight for Johnny D. He got out, he's dead now, it doesn't matter. We're not going to stand up for something if it makes us uncomfortable until it happens
Mhm.
to us.
Right.
So that's where I want to be able to share with the people watching this broadcast. We have to do better, guys, because if we don't do this, if we don't stand up for this, who's to say it won't happen again? There
Agreed.
could be another Johnny D very soon, right there in Monroeville.
Mhm.
Who's gonna fight? What do we do? Just keep letting it happen? No, you have to fight sometimes. Sometimes you do have to fight, James, even if you come up short. because you're setting a precedent that we're not taking this anymore. We're tired of this. That's why those people are filling those streets when George Floyd was killed that way. Everybody looking at that was like, this is unbelievable. Even Caucasians were like, this is a little crazy now. Even though we know it's been happening even before the cell phone videos. But now you guys are seeing it and you see the response it's getting. Now, let me see what's going to happen if this guy gets off. How many people are going to stand up? How many people do you know, Caucasian, that'll get on television and say, you know what, this, and we do have a lot of them. And that's what I like about George Floyd, because this is a movement that has brought a lot of people together. And I think we could do the same thing with Johnny D. Yes, Monroeville is a small town, but I think Hollywood put us on stage. It gave us an opportunity. Did you see Just Mercy? Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
What did you think about it?
I loved it, actually. It is because it, like I said, I heard about Johnny D, but you know, me hearing about him and me seeing a little bit more detail on the situation, it was eye-opening because, you know, I can remember sitting on my granddad's porch and seeing Thomas Tate pull up in his squad car on a many occasion. Now, what the relationship was between my granddad and Thomas Tate, I don't know. I just remember a couple of times this man pulling up, and as soon as he pull up, the first thing I hear my granddad said, "They go that white devil right there. Hold on a minute, y'all." You know, and those were the first thoughts. You know, that was the first opinions that I had ever heard of Thomas Tate. And then when I went back and watched this movie, and then I saw Tommy Chapman. That's another name that I heard growing up. Tommy Chapman. I'd heard about Icon before, and then it put so much stuff that I heard as a child in context.
Right.
You know, along with what I know now as being a black man, it was eye-opening. Like, wow, this is, you know, I've talked to people about how racist, you know, Monroeville is and how they celebrate To Kill a Mockingbird and all this other different type of stuff. And, you know, it's like now some of the people that I've told this about can also go and watch this movie and see, oh, this hadn't been too long ago. This wasn't in the 30s when they was hanging folks. This was, you know, for the 21st century, you know, where we.
Yeah, I agree. And we're gonna talk a little bit too about break down all the players. Now, you realize that there were three main investigators on this case. They were Woodrow Eichner, Simon Benson, and Tom Tate. Okay, they were the three. Put all the evidence together, sent it to the prosecution, and they sent Johnny D. Now, that is a problem because, you know, some people have pulled my strings and said, well, look, you got a black guy that was out there. He sent Johnny D. Number one, that doesn't change anything to me because corrupt is corrupt. It doesn't matter to me that he gets a card to do what he did to Johnny D. He's just as bad as they were. God bless the dead. So as far as I'm concerned, that means nothing to me that we had someone African-American that did that. Nonetheless, we're going to break it down. I want to go through some of that so we can, before we get out of here tonight. I want to do that right now because I think that there are people watching that have no idea about a lot of the stuff that really happened in this trial. And these guys were in charge of this investigation. And the reason they made it easy for Johnny D to get out because they did so much wrong. And Brian Stevenson was able to, James, come in and prove how they withheld evidence. Now, check this out. They withheld evidence. There was evidence that could have freed Johnny D, and this would have been over, and we would not be sitting here talking about this. But they withheld it. For example, there was a guy from, I think, Evergreen that actually had said he was on a tape. They had a recording of him saying that Ralph Myers is going to frame Johnny D for a murder. On tape. Benson had that and withheld it. So they were so willing they just needed to pin it on somebody. Because I want you to think about that time. The white community was scared. Everybody was scared because the rumor was a black man did it. So now they just want a black man to pay for it.
Right.
So the time back then, they split us down the middle because they had us like they were pitting us against the whites against it was just because they were so convinced that it was him. They even convinced Rhonda's parents that it was Johnny D. Now, if you read the book, if you read P. Early's book, you'll see in there that he talks about how Brenda Morrison, and actually Bertha Morrison said this in her own article. She was in the Monroe Journal, I think, in December 2020. And in her article, she brought out that she was getting information about this other guy that wasn't Johnny D. Okay, James? She was like, you know what? Police, I'm hearing that it's this person. And they're like, don't you worry your pretty little head about it. We got our boy. And it was Johnny D. Now, that's why I said to hell with all of this other stuff. They have to pay. I'm sorry. And Tom Tate is the only one that's left because everybody else is dead. Tommy Chapman's dead. Benson is dead. Eichner's dead. They're all dead. So we'll get what's left. At least to make a statement, this cannot happen again. It can't happen again. Because if we would have rested on that, I'm just going to be honest with you, we wouldn't have had a civil rights movement. If we just wanted to rest on thinking they were going to do the right thing. Since we're talking about Tom Tate, let me share some things with you about Tom Tate. We're going to talk about that because I really want to get into some of the stuff that I found out today. And I know you did some research, but I want to get into the nuts and bolts because I really want people, before we talk to Pete Early next week, I really want you guys to understand some stuff. All right, Tom Tate. After Johnny D was released, this guy remained in office, James. Okay? That right there blows my mind. Every time I say that here on the show, everybody is like, yeah, Ella, but you guys continued to vote for this guy. You elected him year after year after year, and he was the one that decided not to. He was the one that decided not to go again because he was so old. He was like, you know what? I'm tired. Why didn't we put him out of business? But now there are people, and I like to respect everyone's opinion. I've heard that he was real good to African Americans. I heard that he did some good things. I heard that. For me, I don't care. I don't care. Because let me tell you something, what accountability means, James. Accountability is not admitting that you did something wrong. It's not even about a confession. It is about being true to what you committed to me. People in Monroeville, Alabama, you elected these people to serve the community in integrity. And when they don't do that, you have every right to put them down.
Right.
So, and that's good for today too, James. You guys, you're electing people and you're just electing people sometimes because you like them and they just been in there and you don't want to try to get anybody else. I want to encourage people that have the desire to be in politics, try it. We need fresh ideas. Have you ever thought about politics, James? Maybe you can go back to Monroeville and become like the next city councilman or something.
It's not that I don't care about my hometown, but I think some places have to some things have to die out first. And unfortunately, I think Monroeville is one of the places that a lot of stuff got to die out. I don't want to have to wait on it. Not only that, I don't really see myself being a politician because I don't have the patience for all the nonsense.
Right.
And it would probably take me the rest of my life to sit down and do whatever I could to make things different, especially when you're being opposed by everybody else, because that's going to happen.
Now I want to talk about some other things. We all know that McMillan did sue Tate for $7.2 million, but the Supreme Court ruled against him. Other things I found out. Y'all remember in the movie when Tate arrested Johnny D? You remember the movie where he pulled him over and he was like, those rims look like they cost you a pretty penny. Who you been working for, right? We all know Johnny D worked for himself. He was self-employed. Right. And he had done a lot of work in the community, but they couldn't stand to see this black man with nice rims and all this kind of stuff. But I want to share this because there's a little controversy, and I want to, give Tate, I want to be fair here. He did say that he didn't say this, but according to McMillan, Tate, that was like, okay, yeah, you said that, but no, he said something a lot worse. Let me tell you what McMillan said. Tate said. He said he was going to, and I want to first give my disclaimer here that there are words that may not be appealing to your ears, but I'm going to put it like it is. I'm putting it down like it is here. He said he was going to stop us niggers from effing these white women himself. He told me he was going to stop that. This is what Johnny D said, okay? He also said that Tate said these words. Now, this is what Tate said. I didn't say that. He said, I ought to take you off and hang you like we done that nigger in Mobile, but we can't stand that suit. Tate did deny saying this. So the reason I'm bringing all this out is because I know there are a lot of things that you don't see in the newspaper. You're not going to see it on 60 Minutes. This comes from reading the book, reading articles, doing your research, and there's more. Early talks about how Tate told Johnny D that he was being arrested for the sodomy of Myers. Okay? When they put, listen, I know, James. I know, I feel you. When they pulled him over, Johnny D is like, when they got him to the jail, he's like, what? What did I do? Why are you arresting me? And Tate tells him sodomy. And Johnny D was like, soda what? He didn't even know what it was, James. And so when I read in other things, because I don't think in Early's book he actually said it was Myers they accused him for, but I saw it in the I saw it in other articles that it was Myers that they said he did that too. But it was an excuse. They just needed to pull him over, look for drugs. They wanted anything they could, because what they did was they held him in jail until the paperwork was done so they could charge him with Ronda Morrison. And so right away, Johnny D was like, I don't even know this girl. What are you talking about? Who? I didn't kill this girl. I was at home. I was with my family. Tom Tate was not interested in what Johnny D had to say. People, hello. He was not interested. He was not interested in what he had to say. All right? Now, another thing about Tom Tate. And the reason we're talking a lot about him, because he's the one that's not dead. All right? And he still, even until everything was said and done, he still believed that Johnny D did this. He still believed it, James. He still believed it.
I believe it.
Oh, teacher said it may be a coincidence, but Mr. Tate retired right before the release of the movie.
Well, another reason why he retired is because of that big scandal that came out about that law in Alabama where the jailers don't have to spend the government funded money on prisoners' food. They can spend it on they have to provide them with the meal, but it doesn't have to be extravagant. As long as they get something in their stomach, they can pocket the rest of the money. It was,
and you know how much
like
he pocketed? You know how much he pocketed?
It was like almost $1 million.
Oh well, the article it was like $110,000. No, it was $110,000 that he pocketed, and that's when he was like, and you know what he said to the Monroe Journal? It hurts my feelings to be accused of doing something wrong. Please listen. All right, that's I'm saying this because, guys, listen. Nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. James, you're not perfect. Tom Tate is not perfect. Okay? But that doesn't excuse what they did, because these were the leadership. These were the elected officials. These were the people that were put there to make sure that everybody was treated fairly.
Right.
And they failed. Every last one of them. So it has to be talked about. But this is real, guys. This is stuff that really happened. Now, what do you have to say about Tom Tate before we move to the next person? Because we're going to break all of them down tonight.
Outside of what I've said about him so far, I don't really have any other opinions about him.
All right.
But one thing I will say is, like I said, this isn't somebody that anything like that. I saw the man my eyes for black folks and all that. I ain't never heard nobody say that about him. I heard you don't talk the policeman and all that different type of stuff. And like I can't for any good measure say that Thomas Tate shouldn't be judged this way because of what he's done for black folks. I mean, Massa made sure we had a little bit of food to eat. and somewhere to sleep. But that didn't mean that he cared about our well-being.
No, that's a very good analogy there. I totally agree.
So
Totally agree.
you say what you want, but at the end of the day, he still put a innocent man in prison for a long time, and that man ended up not living as good of a life as he should have been able to live because he put him in jail. So
I want to bring up something that one of my viewers, Yolanda, said. This is amazing. She said, every time I applied for a job in 86, 87, no one wanted to hire me because my marriage name was McMillan. Can you believe that?
oh yeah,
Oh my
definitely,
goodness. I just, wow.
definitely,
It
I
went
can
that
believe that.
deep. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Yolanda. Um, and Denise says Tate would drive to Finchburg when it was time to vote. For real. Now, anybody out there, you are definitely from Monroeville and old school if you know where Finchburg was. I went to Finchburg all the time. Um, but that's you know what, Denise, that is the common theme with a lot of the politicians, including the black ones. They only come around when it's time to vote. And the only way you're going to stop them is to not vote for them. I'm just saying. All right. So let's talk about Tommy Chapman. Now, everybody says,
Tommy Chapman.
Tommy Chapman. Listen, people were like, well, Ella, you can't blame everything on him. He came around afterwards. Yes, he did. He came around afterwards. But let's talk about Tommy Chapman because we're going to talk about all of them. Tommy Chapman took office in 1990. That's 2 years after Johnny D was already found guilty. Okay. So he didn't have anything to do with Johnny D being found guilty. He did not. Okay. We put that out there. That's the only good thing we got to say about him. Now, he even admitted, James, that the case was mishandled. He said that. When he came in, he said, yeah, they mishandled. They did some screw ups. Hello. Everybody knows that. ABI saw that right away the same day they went to the cleaners. They moved the body. I even read in some reports where they put her clothes on because her clothes were actually off when they found her. So those are just those kind of stories that are just, we don't know the truth because we weren't there.
Right.
But they did do a lot of mess ups. I read in, listen, James, this is going to blow your mind. I read in Early's book that when the police showed up, they got this call that they got a murder at the cleaners. They show up. They didn't even have a camera to take photos. So they had to use a guy who was, I think they called him or he was stopped by or something, but he's from either the newspaper or the radio station or something, but he's an editor or something in Monroeville. And they asked him if he had a camera. He took the photos of the crime scene. And some of the photos he took, James, he did it incorrectly. So he missed some stuff. That right there in itself, they were allowing people to come in and out at the cleaners. They didn't have the yellow tape up. People were walking in. So they really messed up the crime scene. So we're really hoping that there's some DNA because DNA is advanced now, of course. And we're hoping that we'll be able to find some stuff with that. But this is the kind of stuff that went on. Now let's talk about Chapman. He said that, all right, Johnny D was released. Proves the system works. What do you have to say about that?
When did he say that?
I don't know the date he said that, but it was while he was in office. He said that Johnny D was released. Proves the system works.
Well, for one thing, I didn't read anything about that, but I got a big problem with that because I went back and I watched the 60 Minutes interview that he did with oh my God, I'm always forgetting names. I forget his name. It'll come to me eventually. But when he did the interview about this case, Ed Bradley, when he was interviewed by Ed Bradley, he was convinced that Johnny D did it. He said that he wasn't going to feel any type of way about him being put on death row because justice would be served. He said a couple of things about Myers that I found really shocking.
Like what? What did he say about Myers that shocked you?
Well, for one thing, he wanted to put him back on trial for perjury because he said that the testimony that Myers gave initially about Johnny D was accurate because it had been corroborated And then he said that the fact that he would come back later on and say that he was coerced and forced to tell, to give this testimony was false, and that he should go to prison for the rest of his life for perjury. Not only did he say that, he also said that if he wasn't convicted for perjury, and I wish I had wrote down the actual quote, but he said that the prison system had its way of dealing with snitches and that Myers was a snitch.
Yeah.
This is what came from his mouth. Yes. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. So y'all really got it out for Johnny D for some reason.
Yeah. Well, it clearly from their own admission, it was because of the white women. They were trying to make that's why I don't like To Kill a Mockingbird, because I think that was trying to make the same statement. So anyway, so Myers here. All right, guys, those of you that watched the movie, you saw where Brian Stevenson brought out the fact that Myers was recorded saying that he was going to have to say this and he didn't know anything about this murder. That really happened. Because I wanted to research and see what was real, what wasn't in the movie. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit too. But that was real. That really did happen. There really was a recording. And how they recorded it, it was on the flip side. You remember how we could record on both sides of the cassette tapes? Well, they had the one that they presented, but on the flip side, it was Ralph Myers saying, I didn't know anything about this. I don't even know the man. And that's one of the things that Brian Stevenson used to help get Johnny D out. Remember in the scene in the movie where they presented all of this and all of that? Yeah, that part was true. Now let's keep talking about Chapman. Let's see what other kind. He wasn't the original prosecutor. We know that. You remember in the movie where he was when Brian Stevenson had the guy that said Bill Hooks couldn't have seen that. He was with me working. That particular guy, remember they said he was upset and he was sitting in the car with Brian Stevenson and he was like, man, they're going to get me for perjury. I knew I shouldn't say anything. I feel so bad about Johnny D, but they're going to get me for perjury. Listen, that really happened. That really happened. They really did, but the charges were dropped in Tom Tate's defense. He did try it, but they did drop it eventually because Stevenson went to him and said, you got to be out of your raggedy mind. Are you serious? So he eventually dropped that, but it was true. That did happen. And so Chapman is dead as well. He died in 2017. I would love for him to be here so I can have this conversation with him. I would love for him to be on the Ella Johnson show, right? I'm telling you, it makes me want to go wherever they're arresting and bring them up, right? Because they just need to pay. Now, let's talk about the judges. Because see, what I don't want people to forget is that all around the board, the system failed Johnny D. The judges, the police, the investigators, everybody failed him. And that upsets me. And the reason it upsets me so much is because it's still happening. It would be different if people were learning from this stuff. It would be different, James, if the civil rights solved our problems. But it didn't. The civil rights was just on paper. But people still have to enforce the laws. And if they're not enforcing them, then what? Do we just let them keep not enforcing them? No, we have to make them enforce them. And this is why you have to vote. So let's talk about the judges. Now, there were people that said, Ella, was Robert E. Lee Key really the name of the judge? Yes, that is true. Yeah, that is the name of the judge. His name was Robert E. Lee. What a coincidence, right? Robert E. Lee Key Jr. Now, this is what he said about the crime. See, this is what makes me so angry about all of this, James, is because everybody had such an opinion about Johnny D, and they were wrong.
Right.
And nobody wants to say, look, you call this man a savage. You call him an animal. Right. Do you realize, James, that in the trial, the last thing the prosecutor said when he was giving his closing statements about Johnny D, saying that, we got to put this guy away. He killed this girl, da-da-da. He looked at the jury and he looked back at Johnny D and called him an animal. Are you?
I think I read that.
He called him an animal.
Of course.
I almost had a Kirk Franklin moment then. So I almost had a Kirk Franklin moment right then, James, because it angers me. It angers me because it should anger all of us. And I don't care that it happened 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I don't care that it was so old. 34 years that it's been, 34, it'll be 35 in November, that Ronda Morrison was killed. We still don't know who killed her. And this is one of those secrets that Monroeville wants to hide because they want to exalt the To Kill a Mockingbird. No, don't talk about that stuff. No, let's talk about this over here. And you know what they're doing? They're getting us to follow suit with that. I understand that everybody likes the To Kill a Mockingbird. It makes you feel like you're in a place that's famous, okay? But wouldn't we want to be famous for something like, I don't know, we have an NFL player there now. Why don't we talk about that? Why don't we?
A couple of NFL players, actually.
Who else? Other than Titus Howard is one I know. Who's the other one?
Oh, well, once again, forgetting names, but I went to church with a few people. Their sons ended up in the NFL. I'm sad to say I don't not remember the names, but yeah, there have been a couple of different people, from Monroeville that have gone to the NFL and things like that. Yeah.
But if you look at when people talk about Monroeville, you only hear about
Harper To Kill a Mockingbird. That's it.
Black people contribute, and I have a problem with that. And I think the only way we're going to change that narrative is we have to make them recognize. So you made us read To Kill a Mockingbird. Why don't we read Just Mercy? Because that's a true story. Now, there are people, James, that say, oh, no, Ella, To Kill a Mockingbird was fiction. Then you have some people say, Ella, come on now. You know that really happened. Personally, James, I think it did.
Harper Lee wrote that book based on her life experience, and that's a quote. She wrote that it was based on her life experience. Yeah, the Malone brothers. Yeah, she just said that. But yeah, she's according to what I've researched about Harper Lee, that book was based solely on her own experiences growing up. And it's funny because, it's a little girl in the story and all of that good stuff. And it would make sense that you would write about your life because that's where the best material comes from. I mean, at the end of the day, it did win a Pulitzer Prize. So, I don't think that was something she just sat up and thought about one day.
Well, I read, and I think Wikipedia about that, and you're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. She did say that this is something that happened in a town. It happened for real. And that's why I don't like it. Because you could, if you really were just trying to tell a story about justice, you could have let him rob a bank. You could have let him do something that wasn't so, that was a sensitive issue in the South. And it's like, I understand you didn't take in consideration that there are Black people that are really dying for stuff like this. There are Black people and they're telling me that this is because of justice. James, you and I talked before the broadcast, and neither one of us could find the justice in this story. I challenge those of you that are watching the broadcast. Tell me, educate me, my friends. Tell me, what am I supposed to get out of the To Kill a Mockingbird? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Why is it that book was required reading? Even in college, I had to read that book.
Well, this isn't my opinions about the book aren't necessarily against Miss Lee. I think if it is based on her life, I feel like she should have written it because it showed the actual version. The actual version would have showed, like I said, how the judicial system works for us. If about how it doesn't really matter what the truth is. We're Black. They want to see us gone, so they're gonna do whatever they can to convict us. Also, if you look at the second book that she wrote, even though technically that was the original manuscript for To Kill a Mockingbird, it shows exactly how Atticus felt about Black folks. It shows, how a lot of other people felt about Black folks. So, ultimately it did show some sense of truth. Harper, and not to mention, like I said, when I commented on the page, she was ran out of Monroeville because when they read the original manuscript, it showed just how racist they really were. And they told her that they weren't going to publish it. They were not going to publish it because it showed Atticus Finch as the racist that he really was. It showed that he did not care about getting that guy off. and that the only reason why he did it was because he felt like he needed to.
You said a mouthful. Now let's go back, because you said she was run out because when she showed the original version, that they ran her off, and that's the same thing Dietrich just said, that she left because of the racism. So in other words, she was trying to let the world know that this place is racist. And when she showed the original manuscript, they were like, listen, you can't print that. We don't want to bring that out. And so, but the one that is out, there was a black man in this book who was found guilty of something he didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the part I can't get past.
Right.
Okay. He was found guilty of something that he did not do. Now she's just telling the story. Yeah, right. You're right. We should not have any ill feelings toward her. I just don't like the attitude that surrounds this story.
Right.
Because I think there's another and a better story that we can tell that's good for Monroeville. And it's just such a sensitive topic for me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately, I just never felt that it wasn't going to do me any good, because everything that book was going to teach me, I already knew. You know, I already know exactly how black folks were viewed in Monroe County. I knew how black folks were viewed in Alabama. I knew how black folks were viewed in the United States of America. So there was no reason for me to read this book, because I already know, you know, I'm living the life of this guy. You know, every black man in America is living this guy's life. You know,
now you see what Jenny said here. She said that the publisher made her change the story. I guess what she's saying is that had nothing to do with Monroeville. The publisher is the one that didn't like this. And when she wrote the story, she was in fact in New York. I don't know a whole lot about that. I do my research for that tonight.
Well, I mean, that was written a long time ago, and none of us were there, you know. So a lot of the times, you really just have to go by the common sense that, you know, is there. You got to go by your common sense and see.
So my thing is, okay, if we're going to give that, then let's do the same for other literary arts that come through that talk about Monroeville, like Just Mercy and Circumstantial Evidence. Right. But see, for some reason, we don't want to talk about that one. It's too sensitive. Well, I think To Kill a Mockingbird was sensitive. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more about these judges, because I think you guys are going to want to know about this. Listen, this is crazy. Judge Robert E. Lee Key Jr. was the judge in the back then. And check this out. This was what he described the crime as: the vicious and brutal killing of a young lady in the first full flower of adulthood. Now, I want you guys to think about something. Judge Robert E. Lee Key Jr. was the judge. Pearson was the DA, right? And then, of course, you know, we had these other guys. I think Branton, and I'm not sure. I can't remember who Johnny D's lawyers were. Obviously, they lost the case because he was found guilty. But the thing that struck me is that McMillan case was not the only one that pair was on. That judge and that DA, there was another one. And I wish somebody could research, because I don't know what he did, but Brian Baldwin was the one that they were on the case with as well. And this particular judge and DA were together again. And that one went all the way to the Supreme Court, James, in 1999. It went to the Supreme Court, and they decided, oh my gosh, to let the state of Alabama execute a man, Brian Baldwin. These same two, Key and Pearson. Johnny D, Key and Pearson. So that was the common theme, guys. It hasn't changed, is my point. Now, let me tell you guys something else. Pearson, let me tell you what Pearson, and I already said this, he referred to Johnny D as that savage, that animal. You know what Key called him? That boy. But when Dr. Martin Luther King came to Monroeville, I'm told, the black pastors turned him away. Why would we do? Let's just pretend, James, that was true. Why did that hurt us?
Yeah, of course it did. I think the quote from Harriet Tubman said it best. I don't remember the numbers that she used, but she said, I led a lot of slaves to freedom, and I would have led a lot more if they had known that they were slaves. It's comfortable. Like you said, you were talking about comfort. a lot of the times we don't care about change because we're already comfortable in what we're doing, and you got to think about um, probably the things that black pastors were already going through and the things that they had to deal with at that time. So of course, I'm pretty sure that they had been visited by some folks that said, "Hey, when that boy come down here, y'all make sure y'all don't show him no hospitality, because God forbid something come, happen to y'all during y'all, during y'all church service, or something happened to you, or something happened to your family, or something happened to your congregation because talking to this man. You know how these folks around here. You don't want the Klan to come right out on y'all. So what you gonna do if somebody threaten your whole life and tell you that you better not interact with this man? Of course you're gonna turn them away. Of course you're gonna we don't want you. We don't want you around here. I'm able to get up every morning, talk to my wife and my children, go to work, go throughout my week. Can't get ready for church on Sunday, get dressed up, get spruced up, real nice, see everybody, have a good service, eat, drink, be merry, go and do it, all over the next week. And then the thought that
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. It's 2021. What if a civil rights activist wanted to come to Monroeville now? Do you think they would turn him away?
Probably not. I don't think that they would, because
I disagree.
I lot totally of the disagree. You don't think so? I mean, the thing is, like I said, I've been gone. I left for college in 2009. I've come back and forth a couple of times, but I haven't spent a lot of time in Monroeville since. But I know there are a lot of younger preachers, maybe not in Monroeville necessarily, but that's the only reason why I said maybe. But I'm not in them man's head.
Right. That's why I wanted to title this show, "The Time to Do What's Right Is Now." The time is right. It's always the time to do what's right. Because, and the reason I say that is because people like comfort. Don't mess with my comfort. Ella, everything's good. I'm happy. We don't have the white folks messing with it. Don't mess with that. Don't stir up trouble. Everybody's getting along here. And the reason I know that is because I tried it. Okay. So I wouldn't say I disagree if I didn't know something. You feel me? But I'm not going to disclose all of that right now because this is not the time. But I know for a fact that it's not welcome because people just want things to be comfortable. Now, you may have those people there who don't make the decisions for the city that would want it. But when you're talking about these elected officials, because and that's a bold statement to say. And you know what? I would love for them to prove me otherwise, because there's been enough in Monroeville where you should have had civil rights activists there making some. And we can start with all the unsolved murders. Let's start there. Now, you realize, James, that when murders are not solved and you're having a problem being able to get some information and get your evidence together to convict somebody, all you have to do is just go down the street to ABI and say, "Hey, guys, come on over here. We need your help. We need your expertise." Because money is an issue to people. The reason they can't get the training is there's no money. So if ABI doesn't come in there, James, and help, that's just another unsolved murder. Is that something you would want if you were a reporter, or let's say you went to the town hall that Monroe was going to have next week, and you live there and you see all of this going on? Is that a question you would have? Is what do you intend to do about the unsolved murders, or does that matter to you?
Yeah, it would definitely matter. Yeah, it would matter. It's just, depends on. I would say it probably depends on who got murdered. If we're talking about folks that white folks or anybody else that support them, maybe be bringing them money, they'll probably care about those. But me, if I come down to Monroeville and I end up dead, no, I'm you're gonna see my name in the paper, probably see my picture, hear a little bit about my family and the things that we've done in and around Monroeville. But outside of that, it's not gonna get a lot of traction. Now
I want to bring up comments, because I love when my viewers comment on what's going on. I want to go back to a comment that Yolanda made. And she said that my oldest brother was railroaded and sent to prison for made up charges on him because he was dating a white woman from Monroeville. Now, guys, I want you guys to think about something. Yolanda is somebody that I personally know. She's like a sister to me. And this happened, and I remember when it happened. So this was something that was happening in Monroeville, guys. For those of you that didn't know this, you have someone that's alive and well today who this happened to because he was dating a white woman from Monroeville and
That is crazy.
made up charges.
That is crazy.
Luckily, he didn't get to, he didn't go like Johnny D, but it still happened to him. Okay, so let's see, who killed Kim Schumack? Deetra, we'll have to have that conversation. All right. And Jenny says, hi, Jenny. How are you, beautiful? She said, and expand Medicaid in Alabama. I love all of these ideas, guys, because I think it's so important for us to bring this stuff out because people who are from Monroeville are watching these kinds of shows. Jenny says, present tense still happening. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He did 8 years. So Yolanda's saying that her brother did 8 years for the same thing that they got Johnny D for. Now, are you telling me then that they weren't setting a precedent by putting that type of thing in To Kill a Mockingbird? I think it's good that Harper Lee brought it to the forefront, but I think that we're supposed to do something about it. This is doing something about it. Like, okay, you got your little jokes about that, but let's be real. We're not taking that. What you did to Johnny D, that's not going to happen again. Because we are ready. And you know what? I think it was Deetra that made a comment. She made a good point. If a civil rights group of people were to come to Monroeville, they would not be supported. That's the part that breaks my heart, James. Because I'm trying to understand that fear because I don't have it. And I don't want to judge. I want to understand the fear. I don't want to judge it. I really don't. I don't want to put people down for having the fear because I don't live in Monroeville. I used to live in Monroeville. But I know for a fact I would still say this even if I lived in Monroeville. I know that for a fact. But I'm trying to understand, is it because we are afraid that we're going to lose our job? Is it because we're afraid we'll lose our position? Because what is the purpose of people going out and getting these positions if you're not going to represent the people who put you there? If I vote for you because I'm depending on you to represent my community, then I need to see some changes in my community. Otherwise, why are you there? How do you feel about politicians and elected officials and all of that? Do you feel that they owe us? If you're voted for them, do they owe you, James?
They owe me if they're about the same thing I'm about, and that's one thing I'll say. Growing up in Monroeville, I never came across politicians that seemed like they cared about us. They came in on Sunday morning and politicked with us a little bit and talked with us and said some good stuff, but you can tell they just there for face value. They want to get themselves out there. Hey, my name is James. I need for you to vote for me, and this is the reason why. A, B, C, D, F, G. I know your pastor. I talked to him. I drove by his house the other day and asked him, could I come and speak to y'all good folks for a little minute? All of that. But I never saw these folks out in the community. Hey, man, what's going on with y'all? What type of issues y'all been having? What can I do to help y'all solve that if I'm elected? Because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the public service. I'm here to make sure that y'all are good because that's what this future title expects of me. This is what y'all gonna expect of me. I never seen that. So,
Now, James, I have to come to the defense of elected officials too. I believe in both sides of everything. The elected officials can only do their job when the people let them. In other words, we have city council meetings. Y'all need to show up. How are you going to ever have a voice in the community if you don't ever come and be heard? Just like next week, I was told today that there's a town hall meeting next week with the mayor in Monroeville. I want to encourage everybody to be a part of that because you know what? They can't do it by themselves. And when these police are in the community and they're asking you guys questions about who killed this person, did you see anything? You got to talk. They can't do it all by themselves. So if we're going to be real, we got to tell both sides of it. This is not just about, the cops aren't solving murders. If they don't have anything to go off because nobody will talk, that's on you guys. So I'm not, I'm just gonna keep it real on that. Looks like James is a little frozen there, but we're gonna keep going, guys, because you know what? I think that there comes a time when we have to really realize that we can't keep lying about where we are. We can't be comfortable with where we are. We can't allow ourselves to be always in a position to blame everybody else. We have to take ownership. And what's going on in Monroeville right now is we have a petition that myself and some friends of mine put out there to say, listen, we need to reopen this investigation to find out who killed Ronda Morrison. She was 18 years old. I don't care, it doesn't matter to me what was going on back then. Right now, both families were affected by this. Rhonda's family is still affected by this. Her mother still wants to know who killed her baby. This young lady was everything to them. She was their baby. She was their miracle child, and they lost her, and they don't know why. And I just want to say to those that are watching this broadcast and know the Morrisons, at some point I would love to sit down and have a conversation with Ms. Morrison, because this affects her too, as well as Johnny D's family, what we're trying to do. And I want people to hear my heart, since I'm the only one talking here now, because my guest we lost service or whatever. But I want people to hear my heart. Well, because people have asked me this, Ella, why? Why in the world would you throw yourself in this when you don't have to? Why would you throw yourself in this for something that's 34 years old? And the answer to that is a very simple one. Why not? Was it solved? No. Are you guys at peace over it? No, because somewhere there are people that still think Johnny D did this. I know you guys don't want to believe that, but it's true. Because I wouldn't be this vocal about it if I didn't know that. And I don't share everything, okay, that I know about this. But just trust and believe that this is necessary, and it's necessary now. Because Hollywood told this story. What was it about this story that was so appealing to Hollywood? You got to think about it. What was so appealing to Hollywood that they would have this story, tell it on the big screen with Jamie Foxx, Michael B. Jordan? These are reputable actors. What was it about this story that was so important? You know why? Because the time was right. Look at this country. Are we where we need to be? You got to think about that. Are we anywhere close to where we need to be, being this created equally that they tell us that we are? Do you feel like we're created equal? Do you feel that there's two justice systems? Because back in 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King did a speech. And in that speech, he talked about those two Americas. And as much as we don't want to acknowledge it, Dr. King was on point about a lot of things, and it still rings true. Do you think there's two justice systems? We're seeing it unfold in front of us right now with Chauvin, the trial. If you're watching the trial, you guys already know that we are in two Americas, because look at it. This man we saw on live television where the life was being taken out of him second by second. And for some reason in this trial, they're putting him on trial instead of the one who did it. There's something wrong, guys. Let me take some of what you guys are saying here. All right. Yolanda says there's not enough Black history. It was not taught to us back in those days. That is absolutely correct, Yolanda. And that's where I was getting from about this To Kill a Mockingbird situation. Now, we were told to read that. That was the book that we had to read. And even in college, we had to read that book. Why is it that there weren't enough books for us to read that would be equally telling us about our history? You remember the government books? The only Black person I can ever remember in those books was Martin Luther King, for sure, and maybe Malcolm X, maybe, depending on what school you're at. And I think that didn't do good. But now we can't keep using that as an excuse. We have internet now. We have all kinds of resources that we can actually learn ourselves. I would encourage and employ anybody to read your history. Know where you come from. Know why this is so important. And I think the reason that a lot of people don't want to get on board with this petition is because you don't understand why it's really important. It should break your heart. Something should happen inside of you to know that a black man in 1986 in Monroeville, Alabama, was sent directly. I need you guys to get this part because we talk about it, but I needed to sink in. He was sent directly from Monroeville jail directly to death row. There was no in between. And they felt like this was just so horrible that that was what he deserved. And even, I want you guys to think about this too, even after the trial and the jury found him guilty, it was predominantly a white jury. I think there was like one African American, which was already horrible because you tried him in a place that was not his peers. Okay, it was a place that was what, I think 40, he went from like 40% Monroeville being African American to like 11%. So no wonder there weren't any black jurors. But anyway, they convicted him, found him guilty. They, yeah, we're going to give him life. And you know what Judge Robert E. Lee Key Jr. did? He says, you know what? I just want y'all to understand something. That it was merely a recommendation that you're giving. But I have the power to change that. See, back then, guys, in Alabama, the judge could override whatever the jury decided. He could override it, and he used his judicial override to send him to die in the electric chair. They didn't have evidence. Guys, they didn't have any physical evidence. I need you to understand this. No physical evidence, just the word of 3 people. Now, at the trial, there were like 12 people that showed up. They said, Johnny D didn't do this. Guys, if you read Early's book, you'll find out that there was an officer that they suppressed. I need y'all to get this. They suppressed this. There was an officer that was at Johnny D's house that day, and they didn't let him testify. See, I don't think y'all get this. Let me take some of this. Let me take some of this that you guys are saying. Dietrich says, forget the history you were taught in school. Jenny says, yes, absolutely. White supremacy is still choking our country. Jenny, I agree. And it really means a lot to hear you say that because everybody can see that. And for some reason, people don't want to admit it. I'm glad you did. And it is. It's real. And it's choking our country. And we have to respond. I'm sorry. Let's see. Dietrich says it was 90% lies. Junie says an African American in Latin history is such an eye-opening read. Okay. All right. Crystal Hollinger. But why would Johnny D kill Ronda? I don't think he was having an affair with her, was he? Now, based on Johnny D's, testimony and what he has said throughout this case was that no, he did not even know her. He didn't know her. He didn't have a relationship with her. There was no connection. So that's where that is. He didn't. You're right. He didn't have a reason. Jennifer says the entire family was there. No one was permitted to testify. Yeah. So as you can tell, guys, and I don't know how much of this matters that we had an African American that was part of the team of investigators that sent Johnny D to death row. It doesn't matter to me. Right is right, wrong is wrong. I'm not trying to go there, but for those people that want to make that a deal to me, I don't care about that. He was wrong. They didn't have evidence. He personally, based on what I read, there was a part where he personally withheld some evidence when the guy from Evergreen went on tape and said that Ralph Myers was going to say that Johnny D did it. And the guy said it on tape, and they just kind of held that back. So that's the reason this was ugly, is because these investigators had a lot of information that was there that could have that could have helped Johnny D. It could have, proved his innocence, and they didn't let it come out. And that is what Brian Stevenson did, and he uncovered a lot of that stuff, and that's why Johnny D was let out. And of course, the 60 Minutes interview helped as well. So, guys, I can't say enough that everybody, this effort takes the help of everybody. If you have not signed the petition, please do so. It's on my page today. Alex says that he's sorry the power went out. It's okay. I'm going to wrap up in a minute, but I'm glad that you were able to be my guest for tonight. Everybody else had other things that they had to do, guys. So it's just me and you guys. But I still love you. But this should be important to all of us. This should just be important to one or two of us, because you could have a Johnny D in your family right now that's going to come up. What will they won't even know how to do, because we're not showing them anything. We have to show them that whenever you are not getting what you're supposed to get, you have to fight for it. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Martin Luther King fought for it, right? Last night when I was interviewing Dr. Stallworth, Reverend Dr. Charlie Stallworth, what a great interview that was. But he made a very good point when he said that the civil rights movement, I think that it was really birthed. Of course, they marched, you had the freedom riders, you had all these people that were a part of all of the doing what was right. But I think the one that really set it off, if you want to use that term, was when the Montgomery bus boycott happened. Rosa Parks decided, you know what? But she had to do something. Now, she probably prayed while she was doing it. Lord, I hope these people don't kill me. Lord, I hope these people don't knock me in the head with this stick. She was probably praying, but she was also doing something, is my point. And that is where we want to just rely on getting on our knees. You got to do that too, guys. But I think that when you operate in faith, you have to trust that God's got your back. I mean, what is the purpose of faith if it's never tested? This is a faith move. It was a faith move for me to start the petition. It's a faith move for everybody to sign it. It's a faith move for everybody to get involved with this. But this is not just about us, our community. This is about Rhonda's family as well. Everybody was affected by what happened November 1st, 1986. And everybody, it's going to take everybody in a collective effort to change it. So let me see what else. Jennifer, she said, that is correct, Denise. Yolanda says, they knew that it was a white man that killed her, but they saved his ass. Well, yeah, because I'll be honest with you, Yolanda, straight up 100. Since I've started this, I've had at least 4 people tell me who killed Ronda. Now, you're not going to hear me say that on this podcast. I'm not that slow. But I think that they know. I think that Tommy Chapman knew. I think that Tom Tate knew. I think they all knew. But I think that when Tommy Chapman had to finally say, you know what, I'm not going to contest this. Yeah, Johnny D, he let him out. I think that what happened with Chapman at that point was he was like, listen, they're kind of upset with me, so I'm not going any further. Because you guys remember now, ABI went back in to reopen this investigation after Johnny D was released and all of that. They wanted to, they started it again. You have to understand that. But it went they were able to discover, they definitely proved Johnny D didn't do it. But from some of the things that I've read, they gave Monroeville officials some information of which way they need to go, that investigation, and they turned it away. I'm just saying. Now, James, who is just with us, says this is important because if we don't fight back against injustice like this, they will feel comfortable with continuing to do it. Absolutely. That's what I've been saying. Crystal says, why did the owner of the cleaners move out of Monroeville right after the murder? What did he know? They are not telling what was really going on at the cleaners. Yeah, and you know what? This is some of the stuff. I'm glad you guys are putting all these, and I'm going to take some of these things that you're asking, and we're going to ask Pete early next week, because I think that a lot of this stuff is addressed in his book. I haven't read all the book yet, but I'm sure that a lot of that is in there. And he talks a little bit about the cleaners, the owner of the cleaners. So you guys definitely want to tune in next week with Pete early, because honestly, I think that if there's anyone that has all the information about what happened that day, he knows more than the police do, just being real. So we're going to pick his brain next week. Alex says that ABI was also responsible for Meyer's testimony. Yes, they were. All of them were working together because Benson was from ABI. Jennifer, when I find it, I'll tell you what page it's on. Listen at Denise. She's so excited. She got her book today. and she just don't know what to do. She's just besides herself. Ann says Ernest didn't tell Johnny D nothing about her the day she got killed. Um, Ernest did not tell Johnny D nothing about her the day. Okay. Let's see. Please don't shoot the messenger. So that did come out in the book and about Ernest Welch. Everybody that lives in Monroe will know that Ernest Welch was the insurance guy. Not insurance, the furniture guy. He was the guy that went around collecting payments at everybody's house. And let me tell you guys what happened with that. There are conflicting stories about that, and it's covered in Early's book, because at the beginning of the book, it talks about how Welch was there and Johnny D was in bed with his wife, and they found out Welch was out there, and the sister, Johnny D's sister, came, and she needed to get a pot or something to cook fish because they were going to have the fish fry, and he had to get up and go find the pot for her. This is all uncovered in the book. This is all brought out in the book. And Welch came by there that day, and he was the one that told Johnny D that Ronda was killed. He said, my niece just got killed over there at the cleaners. Okay? At the trial, this is a little sticky in the book. As a matter of fact, I just read this part. At the trial, that came up with all the people that came and said, yes, I was there. Johnny D was there. Yes, one by one, right after the next. That yes, he was there. This is where Johnny D's defense might have messed up in the trial, because in the trial, Johnny D's wife was testifying, and she wanted to make sure, because when you're testifying, sometimes we have a tendency to say too much. I know how that is. You just want to really prove your point, and you may say something, and they gave a loophole for the defense to come in, and for the prosecutors to come in and say, what happened is, she, instead of saying, yes, he was there, I saw him, she also added that I know it was him because he came at the first of the month to collect the payment. Now, when the prosecutors got up there, what they did is they showed the receipt, and the receipt was for the day before. And and I think what happened with that, if I remember correctly, what happened is that he was really there, but there was no proof other than their word. And because she threw that part out about picking up the payments, the receipt showed the day before. So when they asked him, were you there? No. So you're telling me that you didn't go to that house? No. So all of those witnesses that got on that stand and said that they were there and they saw Johnny D there, that kind of, and I took some of the information from Early's book, because the foreman in that trial talked about what they saw. They gave their opinions about it, and they said that was one of the things that hurt Johnny D's case, was the fact that you put all these people up there. Why did you bring all these people? Of course they're going to say that because they're his family, because that guy said that he wasn't there, and that hurt that part of it. So Jennifer says, please know that circumstantial evidence had to be rewritten. I did not know that, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to look into that. I think that's very good. We'll probably we will ask him about that next week. Why was it rewritten? And Deetra said, was the family wealthy enough to have the murder investigated? That's a good question. I don't know, but I do know this, Deetra, that based on, and I want to show you guys this, since we're here just talking. Let me just share with you guys this part right here, that this was the article. This was the article in the Monroe Journal. Let me pull this message down so we can see. This is the article from the Monroe Journal back in December 2020, where Bertha Morrison put her story out there. And in this article, I know it's too small for you guys to read, but in this article, she talks a lot about how she feels now. I made some notes here on how she felt about everything right now. And she said it was a big screw up for her child. These were her words. She said they knew us and had been involved with us, but none of them came and talked to us. She's talking about the Monroeville police. That's what she said about Monroeville's police department. They knew us and had been involved with us, but none of them came to talk to us. She said that, and throughout it, she was talking about how she felt that the police were not as responsive after the charges were dropped against McMillan. And in that article, she also talks about how if Johnny D didn't do it, he should not be executed for it. And then she said it's been 34 years, 1 month, and 23 days at the time that this article was done. So I just wanted you guys to see that because let me get out of here. I just wanted you guys to see that because, for those of you that are wondering, well, where's Bertha now? That's where she is. She's still in her home that she's been in for years, and she still wants to know who killed her child. So whether she has money to do the investigation, we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. But guys, I want to show you guys something else too. Look at this. This is from the book. For those of you that have not read the book, I took some excerpts from the book. This is one of them. And this is the part where Brian Stevenson had went to meet the judge. The judge wanted to have a conversation with Brian Stevenson. And it was after he notified the court in Monroeville that he was Johnny D's new attorney. He received a call from Judge Robert E. Lee Key. And the judge is like, who are you? And Stevenson said he was, he told him, I'm the director of the Alabama Capital Representation Resource Center. And Key wasn't impressed. And he says, do you know who Johnny D. McMillan is? And without waiting for a reply, he continued, he is one of the biggest drug mafiosos in this part of the country. I wouldn't think that any self-respecting attorney would want to have anything to do with the likes of Walter McMillan. And this was so crazy because never before had a judge called Stevenson to warn him about representing a client. He considered it a violation of judicial ethics. And he told the judge he still needs a lawyer, and I plan to represent him. You see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. This is the mindset of the people that were in the positions back then. And I don't know if we've weaved them all out. I don't know if they're all gone. I personally think they're still there. I mean, look around you. Do you think they're still there? Do you think that what's happening in Georgia is by coincidence? I think it's because you got some of these same mindsets that are still lurking around. That's why it's so important to vote. I brought this one up last night, guys. I want y'all to see this, okay? Because I know I got some Christians watching the show, and I want you guys to see this. I'm so glad you guys are just still hanging out with me. But look at this. I talked about this last night. This is from Pete Early's book as well. And Bertha Morrison, her husband, they wanted to go to their pastor. Who wouldn't want to go to their pastor to find out where should we be with this with God? Everybody wants to be at peace with God. So they went to their pastor because they had to fill out a report about what they felt about Johnny D, et cetera, et cetera. So before filling out their report, they asked their minister at Eastwood Baptist Church what they should do. And he told them that God required them to forgive Johnny D and pray for him. That's pretty basic, right? I mean, we're told that too. I mean, we've been the poster child for that, forgiving and praying for him. God also required them to demand Johnny D's execution. The pastor said, God expects justice, and that includes punishment. God expects justice, and that includes punishment. Okay? If the Morrisons asked the court to show Johnny D mercy, they would be denigrating the sanctity of life and committing a sin. With that advice in mind, the Morrisons had written in the report, this man took our daughter's life and should pay with his own. And I want you guys to look in that very last paragraph, what Johnny D said to the Morrisons at the end of the trial. And Key asked Johnny D if there was anything that he wished to say. And he said, I am not guilty. I'd like for the girl's parents to know that I did not kill their daughter. I want them to know that. Pretty deep stuff, guys. There are a lot of things that I saw in the book that I was just like, ooh. What's another part here? Over here. I want you guys to see Brian Stevenson handled himself very professionally, okay, when he had to deal with Johnny D and the elected officials in Monroeville. And when he met Chapman for the first time, this is how it went down. He was like, Chapman, greeted Stevenson and O'Connor cordially when they arrived at his office. After he closed the door, he told them that he personally had serious doubts about whether Johnny D was guilty. This is what Chapman said. He had doubts whether Johnny D did it. And he said even his brother Terry was convinced that Johnny D was innocent, based on them knowing each other in the woodcutting business. But I want you guys to pay attention to this. Johnny D, Stevenson thought, okay, we're making some room here. This is pretty good. We got this guy talking and he's admitting some things. But before either one of them could speak, Stevenson and O'Connor, before they could say another word, Chapman added that despite his personal feelings, he was obligated as district attorney to defend the integrity of the jury's verdict. Another part in there, Brian Stevenson speaks integrity to Chapman. Now, Brian Stevenson he's a very intelligent man and he knows his stuff. He just graduated from Harvard. He's using a lot of that. Okay. I hate when we try to act like we have to be a certain way just to impress people, but he was being himself. And he was like, listen, these men are all law enforcement. He told Lewis, they're supposed to make sure the laws are kept, not ignored. This is how Brian Stevenson spoke. Then on the third part there, you see where Brian Stevenson gives food for thought to Chapman. This is very key, guys. I see my logo there is covering up a part of it, but he said, yes, but that jury was not told the truth. In other words, Chapman is defending. Remember, Chapman is the one that was defending what the jury, he says, look, I got to uphold the integrity of the jury's verdict, even though he knew Johnny D didn't do it. But he says, yes, but Brian Stevenson responded by saying, yes, but that jury was not told the truth. This man's life should not be decided based on the popular thing to do, or the political thing, but what is the right thing. Guys, remember the show is all about, it's time to do what's right. This is what Brian Stevenson was saying. This is how he's talking to Chapman. And he says, we have to do the right thing. Everyone knows the truth hasn't come out. And you can either assist in helping present the truth or act in denying the truth. But there is no in between. You're either for the truth or against the truth. Whether or not you admit it, the judge admits it, or Larry Eichner and Simon Benson admit it, the truth will come out and you have to make a moral choice about which side you are going to be on. So I wanted to bring these things out, guys, because that's the message I have tonight that I'm going to end on, is that you have to decide what's right. What is right in this situation? And is it right to just let it go and just say, well, nobody paid in this? Think about it. Johnny D tried to sue Monroeville is for what happened to him. He tried to go after him, rightfully so, but he lost. In the Supreme Court, they were just like, they ruled against him. And if you look at it, because it's very lengthy and it talks a lot about what wasn't proven, this type of thing. And when he tried to go after the money and all that, what they said, that you can't go after a sheriff for monetary damages, because that's what they do. They rule against people all the time. But it's like they didn't take into consideration, they suppressed evidence that could have freed Johnny D from jail. He had no business even being arrested, first of all. Sodomy, Johnny D didn't even know what just sodomy was when they arrested him. So let me go back and look at some of you guys' comments before I get out of here. Yes, Alex, come on. If you're there, yeah, let's come on and wrap up the show. I would love for you to come back. Denise says, yes, I did know that. Learned today, actually, Jennifer. Secrets were probably, let me pull this up. Secrets were probably kept from the mother, somebody close to that family. And says that you are exactly right, Jennifer, and they were not in bed. I know I was there at Johnny D's house. I lived next door to him and his family. Alex says, I'm on my laptop. You still need me? Yes, he's there too. Let's bring him back. I knew you couldn't stay away, my friend.
Yeah, we had a couple of difficulties. So I got a full battery. So
all right. Yeah. Now this is what Stephanie, we're going to talk. Let me look at this comment. Chapman finally had to confess because he actually had some morals, and I can guarantee until he told the truth, he could not rest at night. Very good point, Stephanie. Yeah, because it will eat away at you when you know what you did. And I agree that we have to forgive people. I am all for that, James. I am all for that. But why couldn't people be forgiving when we do stuff? Nobody wants to forgive us. They want to convict us. So why can't we want to convict? I know it's like, well, Ella, we can't do what they do. Well, it's not like we're doing something that we didn't fight to have the right to do. people died so we can have that right to fight. But welcome back, James,
Yeah.
to the Ella Johnson Show.
Well,
Did you miss me?
yeah, a little bit. Uh,
A little bit.
yeah, just a little bit, just a little bit. Um, to go off of what you just said, one thing I always sit back and think about is how it feels like perfect example, right? Right now we have this whole Asian Lives Matter thing going on, right? And the argument currently is black people should support the Asian community because the Asian community is experiencing the same things that black people are experiencing. But on the other hand of that, on the other side of that coin, you know, Asians are pointing out that blacks do most of the violence towards the Asian community, which is not true. And then on top of that, the Asian community is very much racist against black people, especially in the inner city. They're in all of the communities and different stuff like that. But the reason why I brought all of that up is because it seems like it's only a problem when it's happening to them. When black people are being murdered by thousands or hundreds or whenever, lynched, hung, burned, raped, all these other things are going on, and it's just, it's all swept under the rug. But as soon as Ronda Morrison gets killed, it's it's this big thing. And honestly, the only thing I can attribute it to is hatred. And that's my issue with the black community, is that the black community is so supportive of folks. We're gonna go to your restaurants, we're gonna go to your stores, we're gonna spend all our money with you, hurry up and buy. We do all of this stuff for y'all, and then as soon as something happens and they show their real face, we get mad about it for a few minutes, and then we right back in the store. Right back spending our money with them, right back smiling in their face, and when people, like you said, when people try to make changes, when people try to do something different, you're viewed as the bad person. You're viewed as the villain.
Outside agitator is what they
Yeah,
call it.
and not just by the people that we're going against, by our own folks. Why don't you leave well enough alone? Forgive and forget. And that was my thing about the whole forgiveness. Yeah, it's great to forgive people for the things that they do to us, but we also have to remember that it has not even been 100 years ago. As a matter of fact, it ain't even been a year since we see exactly how people feel about black people. You can get on your social media right now and search the right thing, and you're gonna see 12, 13, 14 different black folks, saying that black folks need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and we need to do better. We need to stop killing each other. We need to stop doing this in our community. We need to be more clean, all this other type of stuff. And then, the job is really done for the white folks. The white folks ain't got to get on the internet and villainize us, because we villainizing ourselves.
You're saying a mouthful.
We say enough about ourselves, because I video game a little bit, and it was this guy I had been friends with online for a while, black guy, and somehow the conversation got on something similar to this, and he was just like, man, we the problem. We the problem, man. Like, I'm 19, but I have enough knowledge to know, we're the problem. We do most of the crime in America. We do most of this. We the problem. We need to do better. And then I asked him, where you getting your information from? How do you know that we are the ones? We're the problem, right? We're the problem. We're the problem that America has. We're the ones causing the problems. And he could not give me any real source outside of everything that he hears from outside sources. What he hears from whoever his parents, and I think he's mixed, so I don't think he was raised by the black side of him. So, he was raised by his other ethnicity. So it is we definitely gotta work on ourselves first and foremost.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that part of the problem,
but not in the way that people think.
Right.
Not in the way they say.
I think you're right, because I think what happens is, like, let's say when we get in these positions, it's almost like we allow them to change what we know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there are really people that live in a certain neighborhood that have certain challenges. Why are you going to get in here around these Caucasians and pretend like you don't know? Pretend like you weren't a mother that was on food stamps, or pretend that
Mm-hmm.
you didn't catch 2 buses to get to work. Don't get in that position, because now you have a voice. I expect you to be honest. And I don't care if it's not popular. Okay? You are there to make a difference. Otherwise, don't do it. Let somebody who wants to make a difference do it. And I know it's challenging when you're sitting there. Let's just say, for example, James, you and I are both, let's just say we were both elected to an office. And we're sitting around, there's two of us, because many of us don't get in these positions anyway. And there's two of us, and we're sitting around, and there's like 7 of Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
Now we feel a little pressure because we kind of got to go along with what they like, or we're going to get voted out. They're going to find a way to get us out. So we feel like, well, we got a seat at the table. We just got to go along to get along. How do you feel about that? Because me, I don't believe in go along to get along. I'm not trying to get along. I'm trying to get my people to a place where we need to be. And all I want is for my people to support me. But we get in these positions, and sometimes we're afraid to speak out because we know that our people are not going to support us, or we're afraid that they're not going to like us anymore. And now they're going to work to get us out of there because you think they're the reason you're there.
Well, unfortunately, and I know this by firsthand experience, a lot of the times it's they're the wrong black folks that get these positions, because you have people who do it for us, and then you got people that do it for me. And a lot of the times, those people that we find in these big positions, these politicians, all this different type of stuff, they never did it with the intentions of helping us. They did it for themselves. And that's why they find it so easy to sit and conform. Because they never, it was never their intention to do it to better other black folks. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like,
Let me ask you a question then, James. Then why can't we figure that out before we elect them?
because the black community is the worst when it comes to supporting our own. And the only time that we're going to support our own is when they are the popular people. And I can say that for a fact because there are a couple of people that I've witnessed, become elected in Monroe County. I'm not gonna name names, but the only reason why they got in, it wasn't because they ran on a good storyline or something like that. It was just simply the fact that they were popular in amongst the black in the black community. It was somebody that everybody knew. And all this, underhanded stuff that they be doing and all this other type of stuff, but they get voted in because of who they are. And we don't take the time to actually nurture people within our communities. And I think that is the biggest problem that we have. We don't take the time, we don't push our kids to, hey, you should not necessarily trying to force them to do things like that. But when you come across, not just kids, but when you come across people in your community that you see those good leadership qualities in, we don't push them to like you said, go for public offices and things like that, because those are going to be the people to make changes. But most of the time, the people that are going to make those changes do not get support because they're not popular.
I'd rather somebody that doesn't know the job as well than somebody that's scared.
Right.
Because fear is fatal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it paralyzes you. And I just truly believe that God he doesn't always call people that are qualified, but he will qualify the ones that he calls. So if you are called, don't worry if you don't have all the qualifications yet. Trust God and he'll show you. But I'd rather take that person and groom them and let them be taught than someone that's afraid.
Right.
And somebody that's never had to stand up for something. And I'd rather somebody that's been through some stuff too. Right? I want some people that have been through some stuff. I want to talk about what Jenny said here. She said, you can ask for reparations and justice and be forgiving at the same time, not mutually exclusive. You forgiving me doesn't mean you have to let me harm you repeatedly. I love it. You took that's awesome. And she said, Gandhi said, you could be a politician or you could be a prophet, but one person can't be both. The job of a prophet is to make us uncomfortable. Girl, I like that, Jenny. Jenny, I need to bring you on the podcast. I'll be in touch. I love that. I love Gandhi, and I love that right there. You said you could be a politician or you could be a prophet. Ooh, that's deep. Can you be
So,
both?
now,
No.
just like she brought all of that up, I think that's where the change starts, and that's education. And we always connect education with our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's not just that. One thing that I think all Black folks need to understand is exactly how legislation and all of that works. How do you vote people in? Most of us don't understand it. When I bring up the Electoral College to most people my age, they have never heard of it.
No idea. I know.
And because they'll sit there and argue. Because the last time that Obama was up for president, I didn't vote, and the only reason why I didn't vote is because there was not enough time in that day for me to be able to get to the poll. But
Right.
I was confident that he was going to be elected because it just made sense. He wasn't going to lose the last. He wasn't going to lose. I knew that for a fact. But not only that, I also knew that, and at the time I was still in Alabama, I knew that the state was going to go red. I knew the state was going to go red. There was no possible way that it wasn't going to go red. Yeah. And when I was having a conversation about something that was going on at the time, the argument was brought up. Hey, you know what? You can't have no opinion in this because you ain't vote. And I was like, well, my vote didn't count anyway. And they were like, that's not true. I said, have you heard of Electoral College? What's that? And then when you start to break that down into smaller and smaller levels. And I started asking them, you thought about that last time they rezoned your city? You ever wondered why they rezoned your city and why this little small area became part of this biggest city and all that? I was like, that's called gerrymandering. But you ain't never heard that. You've never heard of that before. You don't know how the electoral, you don't understand it can't run and not win. I sat there and I started explaining all this to them, and it was like, oh man, I never knew that.
So whose job is it? Whose job is it to teach them?
It's us. It's us. It's anybody that wants to see a change happen. They've got to be the ones to do it. Because at the end of the day, I can't go to Troy University and expect for them to teach a class on gerrymandering and how it affects, and how racism is part of that, because they're not going to be willing to teach that. And the only people that are probably going to take that class are Black folks. And so they're not going to bring that up. I can't go to Alabama, the University of Alabama, and teach that. I can't go to Monroe County Public Schools and say, hey, we want to teach this so that these little young Black kids, at Excel and Frisco and all these other schools, they don't want them knowing that, because guess what? Eventually, one of them kids is going to be the one to make a change, and all the Black folks going to surround them. And because now we know how all this works, everybody going to be at the polls.
Well, I think it starts with each other's family. I mean, we have to stop letting stuff like Real Housewives and all this garbage be what we feel like it's with. I mean, I'm not trying to tell people what they need to watch,
but it's the truth.
But we just need to start teaching our family about what's real, because this thing is not getting any better. And we're afraid. And I don't know what our kids are learning by watching us. And I think that's how we're going to end our broadcast, is what are your kids learning by watching you? Are they learning how to be afraid? Are they learning how to get along? I mean, what is the message that our children are learning from watching our leaders today? Like, I have a problem understanding who are the leaders, who's leading. I want to take it back to the petition, because that's how we're going to end our broadcast, James, because I want everyone that's watching this broadcast, share the petition, sign the petition. I don't go into things in fear. I go into it saying that God will make a way, because I'm not worried about who's going to pay for anything. I'm not worried about if they're going to take it or not. I'm just going to do what he said. You make one step, he makes the next step. Isn't that what we teach everybody in church every Sunday? Isn't that what we go back Sunday after Sunday and say that you make one step, God will make two? Well, then why is it that when our faith is tested, we forget those things? Because let me explain something to you that are out there that say you have faith. You don't know if you have it unless you put it into practice. And you don't need it unless it's tested. I'm not having to exercise faith right now to believe that James is sitting on the screen. I see him. I see him sitting there. I see his neck, his eyes, see his lips. I know he's there. I don't need faith to believe that. Now, I need faith to believe that if he's not there, that I know he's going to make a way. And that's the kind of faith you guys have to exercise every day when you are walking with God. You got to believe that he's there, even if you can't trace it. You got to trust him, even if you can't trace him. Well, we need to put that and apply that in every area of our life, even equal rights and civil rights. Right, James?
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Definitely.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to get back on, James. And we had a great conversation today. I think this was necessary. I hope that people learned a lot from all the stuff that we have, that we've talked about tonight. I want to make sure all of my comments are here from my guests. Jenny says Alabama goes red because of voter suppression. There are lots of blue voters who are disenfranchised. Very good point, Jenny, because voter suppression is real. That is definitely a page that they've taken from the history books and bringing it. And if we're just sitting here letting it, I just don't like how we just stand by and let stuff happen. Look at what Georgia is doing. I'm impressed with Georgia. I mean, they went blue.
But see, this is the thing. The reason why that's happening is because there's a difference between being able to vote and the people that we've elected. We voted for a president, but we didn't vote for our local officials. Or if we did vote for our local officials, we voted for the wrong ones.
I like that. She says some blacks are teaching. You go, girl. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm with you there too, Crystal, because I believe in teaching too. So thank you. Thank you for being the example. Appreciate that. Knowledge is power. Awesome show. Thank you, Deshawn. Deshawn was on the show a couple of weeks ago. She's incredible. Awesome. She is one of those people that doing things well. She's doing well. A lot of you are. Those of you that are watching the broadcast, I want to thank you guys. But I hope that you learned some things tonight. I hope you guys are getting excited about Pete Early next Wednesday, 8:00, right here on the Ella Johnson Show. We're going to pick his brain. So I want you guys to do this. I'm going to put a post out probably tomorrow. And I want you guys to put a question in there that you would like for Pete Early to answer. Okay? Or just be on the broadcast that night and put your questions there. But I want us to have a good show next week because, Pete Early is also supporting this petition. He's also, I don't know if you guys know this, but Pete Early on his own was trying to get this reopened and get attention brought back to Monroeville for this Johnny D thing. So when I reached out to him, it was a great collaboration because he's like, this is exciting because I was trying to do this too. So we're teaming up on this and so that we can get this done, guys. Sometimes it's not about you don't think about whether it's going to work and all that kind of stuff. Just make a step because people are watching to see how we are going to do. And I want to thank all of the people that vote. I mean, that signed the petition because it's not just African Americans that are signing the petition. There are Caucasian families that love Ronda that support this as well. So we are, like I said, this is something that affected all of us, both communities. So I think it's going to take both communities to fix it, right, James? And we got to stop hating each other because we need each other. We do. Yeah. But at the same time, on the same voice, I will talk about the racism and the things that do suppress what we're trying to do as well. And I love Jenny because she's acknowledging that as well. And she's a beautiful Caucasian woman. And she realized, she's like, listen, guys, I'm with you. I feel you. You're right. So thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you, Deetra, Denise, and all of you that have been giving the comments. But we're going to get Crystal. Thank you guys so much. If anybody wants to be on the reaction show next Thursday, please inbox me now because we're gonna interview. I'm interviewing Pete Early on Wednesday, but on Thursday, I want reaction. I want everybody to come on that wants to talk about what he talked about on Wednesday.
I'll be here.
You want to be on that broadcast? You want to be on that broadcast?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Make sure you hit me up because I'll forget. So make sure you hit me up. I'll put that post out there if you want to be on that reaction show. As many people that want to join, we'll go back and forth. But if you want to be on that broadcast, please hit me up because I want your reaction to it. Because I'm hoping that he's going to bring out a lot of stuff that's going to make you guys sign that petition a lot quicker. Right. Anything you'd like to say, James, before we get out of here?
knowledge is power, and the more knowledge that we have, the less bull that they can fill our heads with.
That's right. Respect, Deshaun. Jenny says big money is invested in Georgia and turning it blue. They don't invest in Alabama. Ooh. I would love to see Jenny be like an elected official in Monroeville. We need people like her because she, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that the people in Monroeville are not doing their job. I'm not, in no way am I saying that, because who am I to say that? I'm not there. How do I know what they're doing and not doing? I'm hoping that they are meeting the needs of the people. I'm hoping that the people in Monroeville are talking to your elected officials and letting them know what your communities need. I'm hoping that the elected officials aren't waiting on the people to tell you what they need. I'm hoping you're out in the community and see what they need. We need economic development in Monroeville for sure. We all know that.
Definitely.
Definitely need that. So we
Yeah.
got to put our heads together, figure out how to bring jobs, industries there to make people want to invest in Monroeville. And it's going to take a collective effort, guys. And that's how we got to start thinking. Well, I appreciate all of you for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show tonight. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. I'm excited because I'm going to go and hang out in Tampa this weekend and just relax. James, sometimes you just got to let your hair down, even if it is your hair.
Right.
I'll let whatever hair I got on that day down, but I'm just excited because I need some rest. But I just thank you guys so much for tuning into the Ella Johnson Show. We'll be back next week, Wednesday night, with Pete Early here on the Ella Johnson Show, 8 p.m. Eastern, Facebook and YouTube Live. So right now, I need you guys to do me a favor and just share the broadcast. It's over. You've enjoyed the broadcast, so share it with all of your family and friends. We'll see you next time. Tell everybody bye.
See y'all later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show.